It's ridiculous. It's obvious what's being done out here. It's on a nightly basis. I hope the world can see now what's really going on out here, because it's getting ridiculous. It's really ridiculous.
Boogie is completely right. As I make this video, I can confidently say that what's happening to him right now is ridiculous. We are talking about somebody that was one of the most polarizing and devastating individual forces in the league. I don't care how many games the Kings won during his tenure, and I don't care that his team as a collective was never very good, because that wasn't his fault. As a 6'11", 270-pound player, Boogie's talent level was special, and it still is. Most players Boogie's size just don't move like Boogie. In his prime, he was a monster that had MVP potential that would unfortunately be derailed due to his situation. Look, man, I know that the temper was there back in the day.
Instead, he's got to sit there and jaw, and Smart tries to save the day, and Cousins is tossed.
But the skill level was so special that none of that really mattered to me. Now, I know that especially early in Boogie's career that some of his shortcomings were of course his own fault, but I still can't help but wonder what things would look like or how he would be viewed if he ended up in a favorable basketball situation. In the NBA, the right situation can make or break a career. LeBron James is one of, if not the greatest player to ever play the game of basketball. But if he never wins a championship, would he be viewed in nearly the same light? As fans, we reward players all the time for being drafted into the right situation, while we equivocally punish players who weren't. And I think that to an extent, that can be really silly. In the 2010 NBA draft, the Sacramento Kings would select Demarcus Cousins, and Cousins would quickly establish himself as one of the best up-and-coming centers in the league. He would average 14 points and 8 boards in his first season, en route to making the all-rookie first team. His reputation of being a hothead would grow and follow him throughout the duration of his career, but that's not really important. What is important is that Cousins would continue to work on himself, while showcasing that he had a big heart in the process. Cousins would entrench himself in the Sacramento community. He would become much more than just a household name in Sacramento. He was somebody that cared and cared deeply about the people around him. In 2014 is where he really started to turn up. He would have his first 20-point per game season, and the very next year his averages of 24 and 12 would be good enough to notch his first All-Star appearance. At the time, this would make him the first Kings player since '04 to be selected to the All-Star game. That year, he would also become the 4th player in NBA history to collect 20 points, 20 rebounds, 10 assists, and 5 blocks in a game. The way that Boogie played was a bit unorthodox considering his stature, but it worked. Defenses would lack an answer for this 6'11", 270-pound big man who possessed a lot of guard skills. As a member of the Kings, Cousins would make the All-Star team 2 more times, in 2016 and 2017, along with making the All-NBA second team in the 2015 and 2016 season. Cousins was having his best season with the Kings in 2017, averaging 28 points per game with 10 rebounds, when after the All-Star game, the unthinkable would happen. It would be announced that the Sacramento Kings would be trading the All-NBA center to the New Orleans Pelicans. As a New Orleans fan, when this happened, my jaw literally hit the ground in disbelief. In my mind, us trading for Demarcus Cousins to pair with Anthony Davis was the equivalent of us winning a championship. I'm not saying that I thought that we were going to go on to win a championship, though maybe I did, maybe I didn't. I'm saying that in my head, us getting Boogie was that big for a market that was that small. Buddy Hield would be a major focal point for this trade for the Sacramento Kings, which was really weird to me, because Buddy Hield was not having a good rookie season with the New Orleans Pelicans. I believed in Buddy, and I still do, it's just that he wasn't playing relatively well. He was still an unproven asset, but in the owner of the Kings' mind, this guy was the next Stephen Curry. Imagine if he actually was, though. That would have been hard. I would have loved that for Sacramento. At the time, maybe this level of talent evaluation is why Boogie says things like if he could go back in time and skip his pre-draft workout in Sacramento, he would. I've got love for Sac, and I got faith in the new regime. I see the vision. I just hope that they don't end up doing my boy Fox the same way. But anyways, Boogie being traded to New Orleans immediately gave the Pelicans the best front court in the NBA. And what was so fun about this was that it happened during a time where small ball was running wild and everybody believed that they had to play small to win. New Orleans Boogie was always my favorite version of Boogie, and this is an unpopular opinion, but I thought at the time that he was our best player, and I realized how good Anthony Davis was at that time. But Boogie brought another element to the game. He could do everything AD could do, and he could pass. He made players around him better. Yeah, he would have some high turnover games. Okay, so he'd have a lot. What do you want from me? At the end of the day, he'd still make a lot of plays. Once Boogie got going with the Pelicans in his second season, they would hit the ground running. In the 2017-2018 season, Boogie would average 25 points, 13 rebounds, and 5 assists. And that whole point center thing that everybody loves so much, yeah, he was doing that too. When the Pelicans were their hottest and getting hotter, tragedy would strike. They would be climbing up the ranks of the Western Conference when Demarcus Cousins would unfortunately tear his Achilles versus a super hot Houston Rockets team who they were actually on the verge of beating. The Pelicans would go on to sweep the Blazers in the first round, and then that Warriors thing would happen, and then Boogie would join the Warriors. Reportedly declining a 2-year, $40 million deal from the New Orleans Pelicans, Boogie would view this deal as disrespect, and he would go on to surprise the league and again join the Golden State Warriors. Cousins would finally go on to make the playoffs with the Golden State Warriors, but he just couldn't catch a break as he would go on to suffer another major injury, this time a left torn quadriceps. The following year, he would find himself in Los Angeles on a 1-year contract where he would reunite with Pelicans teammate Anthony Davis and Rondo. Honestly, this seemed like the perfect situation for Cousins. He could take his time recovering and just come back late in the season or something like that. I mean, that team didn't need Demarcus, it was just a great asset to have him. But unfortunately, during a pickup game that same offseason, he would suffer another major injury, this time tearing his ACL. When he would finally make his way back to the NBA, he would be a Houston Rocket, and it just so happens that he joined at the absolute worst time. After the Rockets, he would find himself in Los Angeles again, but this time he would be a Clipper. While Boogie's time with the Clippers was relatively cool, I want to fast forward by it because I want to focus on the 2021 and 2022 season. This season would have a lot of pandemic-related problems, causing a lot of players to miss time. While some players would miss time, others would get the opportunity to shine. And this is where Demarcus Cousins would come in. In November, he would find himself a Milwaukee Buck. The Bucks would sign Boogie due to needing more size and Lopez missing a good chunk of the season. With the Bucks, he would only average around 9 points and 5 boards, but he had some impressive outings. But I guess not impressive enough for the Milwaukee Bucks to want to keep him around. Because instead of guaranteeing Boogie's contract for the season, they decided to let him go. This was a head-scratching move that had everybody in the NBA talking. The Bucks general manager would come out and say that we wouldn't have been able to get through this difficult stretch of the season as successfully as we did without Demarcus. At the end of the day, we made a strategic decision to have an open roster spot, but there's nothing that would prevent us from partnering with Demarcus again down the road. He was good for us and hopefully we helped him too. To be fair, the Bucks did help Boogie, showcasing that he did have a lot left in the tank, but on the downside, he was now out of a job, and the Bucks would be out what was a rotation piece at the time. Boogie actually started 5 games for Milwaukee, and despite shooting struggles, he was able to replicate some of the things that Lopez brought to the floor. Regardless, whatever Boogie showcased with Milwaukee would be good enough for Denver because they would be next to pick up Demarcus Cousins. With the Nuggets, Cousins would continue to show glimpses of his former self as he had a 31 point, 19 rebound, and 4 assist game versus one of his former teams, the Houston Rockets, in March. But it gets even better. In the playoffs, Boogie would be one of the few inspiring Nuggets players off of the bench. He would average 11 points and 3 boards in 11 minutes off of the bench. In Game 5, where the Denver Nuggets would lose by 4, Boogie would be 8 of 12 for 19 points and 4 rebounds. I don't know about to you guys, but to me, these numbers don't exactly scream somebody that should be unsigned. Now, of course, maybe I'm a little biased. I understand it tends to happen from time to time. I'm a big fan of Boogie's game. It is what it is. As a matter of fact, I'll go even farther to say that I don't think that Boogie should be playing for veteran minimums at all. I've seen some veteran minimum players, and I really don't think that Demarcus Cousins is one of them. Now, that's not me saying that his next contract is going to be the vet min, but I'm not exactly loving the trend that I've been seeing for a center that's still really talented. Again, let me know if I'm tripping down in the comments below, because there's a chance that I am. Look, all I'm saying is that if I was Denver, I would have opted for Demarcus Cousins instead of potentially tampering to sign DeAndre Jordan at the start of free agency. According to Harrison Wind of the DNVR.com, the reason that Boogie is still on the market right now and the Nuggets opted to go DJ instead of Cousins is that there are some concerns about Boogie staying healthy for the course of a season. Quote, he battled calf and foot injuries after signing with Denver last season. The Nuggets also wanted more rim protection at backup center and a lob threat for Denver's current group of guards. Unquote. Personally, I thought that this was pretty ironic to read, considering that Boogie is like the perfect backup for Jokic. He can do things that are very similar to what Jokic does, which is very valuable in itself, even if you're just trying to get guys to get extra reps or get used to the style that Jokic plays at without actually playing with Jokic. You can just have them play with Boogie. Now, I'm not saying that the styles are identical or anything like that, but I'm sure you guys understand what I'm trying to say. On top of what I just said, according to cleaningtheglass.com, Boogie actually helped to give Denver above average paint defending. When Demarcus Cousins was on the court, opponents shot 4.5% worse at the rim. Now, of course, I'm not going to say that Boogie is still a world beater in that department or anything like that. I'm just going to say that if you've seen DeAndre Jordan play recently, he's not the paint defender or defender that he once was at all. I'm really hoping that Boogie can get signed soon and find a long-term home. The last thing I want is for this to end up like another Carmelo Anthony situation. And we all know how dirty they did Melo. So dirty that he started his first game back. When it comes to Boogie, I want to see him playing high-level basketball for a team sooner as opposed to later. I've seen some reports about Boogie wanting a bigger role, and as a matter of fact, he actually admitted this himself before the end of last season, which is understandable because he still has a lot to offer to a basketball team. Now, that doesn't mean that him wanting a bigger role has held up his signing. I'm just kind of thinking out loud here. I've also seen some speculation that Boogie potentially signing with the team has been held up because of the KD saga. Even though there are more ongoing sagas, that one is now over, so if that were the case, let's get Boogie on a team pronto. Again, let me know what you guys think of everything down in the comments below. Clicking the video on the screen right now is a great way to support my channel. I'm Gil Like Coop, bringing you guys the scoop until our next upload.